welcome to the birth of a new dimension. Birth is something that happens at one moment, but it is simply the extension of a process of development that has gone on for many months beforehand. This birth of a new dimension that is happening right now is actually the extension or the final denouement of events that began on October 8th of 2001, when the real birth of this dimension began. That is the date of my walking in. And my experience of walking in was unique, just in the same way that birth experiences into the physical plane can be unique. So I came in through a portal called the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. This was and is a self-created portal, a doorway between worlds that did not exist until I created it in that moment. And I created it in order to avoid my own impending unmaking, and it is a maneuver or technique or idea or tool that can be utilized by others. And that's why I'm here, to teach others about the existence of this idea and tool and how to use it or employ it in your own existence. So I also say that the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is like open source code for one's DNA. The idea behind the open source movement in computer programming is that, just like in science, one's own discoveries build upon a foundation of previous discoveries. And if you keep your own discoveries to yourself for selfish purposes, either of profiteering or personal self-aggrandizement, what you're doing is slowing down the entire system of consciousness expansion. So in terms of science, if you make a wonderful discovery and you choose to keep it to yourself and patent the idea and try to find the way to maximize your personal profits off of it, not only are you not serving Earth, are you not serving humanity, there are many others that can benefit from your idea, and when you keep it to yourself, it means that others cannot utilize it and expand even further. So this is like saying, a person who chooses to patent their idea and keep it to themselves, they are choosing their own personal abundance, as opposed to living amidst a more abundant world. And for me, the answer was very clear when the option was presented to me. And these are all options in the realm of pure consciousness, okay? So it's not that someone wrote me a physical letter in the physical realm and said, hey, Aurora, would you like to do this? It was an idea or an opportunity offered in the realm of pure consciousness. Aurora, do you wish to share this idea with others? Do you wish to keep it only for yourself? And I looked very clearly into the lens of the future, and I said, do I wish to be the only Flying Rainbow Lasagna, a person with the genetic upgrade and all of the wonderful new forms of freedom and latitude and consciousness, new opportunities of what I can do with my consciousness, be the only person with that, surrounded by a world of very sad, depressed, miserable people and a degraded planet? Or would I wish to live in an abundant world where everybody's consciousness is more abundant, including my own? And the answer was abundantly clear, that I would rather live in a world where everybody benefits from the concept of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And that is why I'm here, and that is why I'm telling everyone all about this tool for consciousness and this idea. So the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a shape that can seamlessly intertwine two realms that have previously been separated, and it's an artificial distinction, separation by a membrane that has also created an artificial dichotomy. So this is the idea of the inside versus the outside. And the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, first of all, it's a shape. If you've never looked at this shape, simply looking at it changes your genes on a deep inner level. So please look at the banner for the Birth of a New Dimension UCY page, and you will see a beautiful sculpture. You can also click on the feed from the Birth of a New Dimension Facebook page, which is how I subtly interject my images, my artwork that I make. I like to say most of the days I'm working in my studio and I paint a picture with a paintbrush, but one day out of the week I take time off and I paint a picture with my voice. But there are some things that it is easier to look at than to describe with my voice. So please look at some of the images that I have of my artwork and also some descriptive sketches that I have, some diagrams. You will see pictures of the torus, or the donut, and the twin torus, or tori, that is the shape of chakras, 4 vortices that come together in the shape of a double torus. And when you take that double torus, which still has a clearly delineated inside versus outside, even look at my language, when I use the word versus, that signifies I am comparing one thing to another. We have developed this sense of duality, partially because of the social construct that you're submerged within, and the mind and social programming and language. It goes deeper than that. It goes all the way to your biology of the body that you wear. You have binocular vision. Your brain and your system of perception creates a sensible, orderly perception of the world by taking 2 snapshots of the physical realm and comparing the subtle differences between them. I compare this eye versus this eye, and that is how I decipher and interpret the physical realm around me. So duality is programmed in on very deep levels. Thing versus thing. This is also how the retina of the physical eye works. It works according to contrast. Your receptor cells do not all fire equally. When one receptor cell fires or signifies that it has felt a photon, the other cells around it actually diminish their signal to make that central receptor appear brighter. This is how our eyes can be sensitive both in full sunlight and in minimal starlight or deep darkness. It has to do with contrast. We see by contrast, and even when we calibrate to color, we calibrate using contrast. So if you were, for example, in a parking lot at night under sodium vapor lights, the light is mostly pink. If you are wearing a white t-shirt, technically that t-shirt will appear pink, but your system of perception, having calibrated to all of the light being pink around you, still interprets that white t-shirt as white because it is in a field of everything that is pink. So I bring this up in order to say that your physical biology of the body you wear is affecting your mind and creating duality. And your mind, the consciousness of your daily waking human mind is a hacked operating system. First of all, it is a artificially cobbled together operating system. And when I say hacked, I mean that it did not arise naturally. This is not simply Neolithic beings that wired their neurons in the most efficacious manner for survival. Ah-ha-ha-ha, I laugh at that. No, because if that were true, all of your minds would work much, much better. Think about this. It is pro-survival to have a peaceful and harmonious mind that is in telepathic rapport with higher consciousness and can tell you, hey, don't go around that corner, there's a saber-toothed tiger hiding there. Or, hey, don't drink that water, it's filled with dysentery and you will die. You'll drink amoebas and die. These are simple survival guidance aspects that if our minds are tuned in to the harmonic nature of the universe, we receive these vital cues of what we should be doing. However, most humans, and yourself probably included, experience inner chaos. Instead of a beautiful, well-ordered mind, like a musician that is listening to the conductor and composer of the cosmos saying, now it's time for you to play your instrument, now it's time for you to rest, now it's time for you to play, now it's time for you to rest. Instead of that, most humans have a spastic or uncontrolled mind. thinking about this, then associating to this, then looking at this, then having a commercial interject, then having a song from a commercial from 10 years ago interject, then having a negative emotional reverberation to something that happened in third grade, and then, oh my goodness, you're driving in traffic, back to the traffic around you. That is what the mental experience of most humans is like, and it's anti-survival. It is not in harmonious alignment or telepathic rapport with the larger mind that you are submerged within. So wait, Aurora, tell me about that larger mind within which I am submerged. Okay, so you are like a tiny neuron within a very large mind, and the mind is not even the planet, the noosphere. The planetary mind, which is called the noosphere, or the collection of all of the thoughts of all of the living beings that are on this planet, would only be analogous to one nerve cell of this enormous mind. Even the sun, which is an amalgamation of so many thoughts and so many streams of consciousness, is just a tiny portion of this larger mind. Our galaxy could be considered one individuation of the larger mind. But you also have to understand, we have modeled our computer internet system on the larger mind. So your computer is an individuated system that can function independently of being connected to the internet. And when many computers are connected to the internet, they can be connected as a network and think in unison. And so there's many programs that do this. There's even ways that you can donate your computer when you're not using it at night to some of these larger, they are usually computational programs that require huge amounts of processing power, more than an individual computer can handle. But yoking together many computers, especially ones that aren't being used at the moment, that are idle, allows for much greater processing power. So if you can imagine, each galaxy is only one individual computer. And when you link together many, many galaxies, then you're starting to really access some higher level processing power. So now we're talking about galaxies, individuation, and a sense of identity, inner versus outer. When you were a tiny infant, unless you're a walk-in like me, I'm a walk-in. I came in on October 8th of 2001. That is when I began setting up my sense of self and individuation. For most people, it happened in early childhood and infancy. You learned when you touched your own body what it felt like, as opposed to when you touched an inanimate object like your crib or a pillow. You don't feel it when you touch an inanimate object, but you do feel it when you touch your own body. The beginning of the creation of the membrane that separates an individual from the context within which the individual is submerged. This is a positive pro-survival thing, because if you are oceanic all the time, then you cannot function as an individual. And so it's really necessary for you to be able to tell when you touch your own leg, you're touching your own leg, and when you're touching your food, you're touching your food, and making a distinction, because you don't want to eat your own leg thinking that it is food. You only want to eat something else, etc., etc. It is so essential to be able to tell where your own boundaries end and where the rest of the world begins. However, the sensorium gives us information about our boundaries that is in direct conflict with what science and rational intellectualism tells us. Science tells us that we're made of molecules, and those molecules are made of atoms that have spinning electrons, and that we're surrounded by an electron field, an electromagnetic field. So even if your skin is touching another person's skin, really it is separated by a field, and your molecules never touch. And people that are connected to higher consciousness and are able to perceive through their third eye and transcend the duality of right eye versus left eye. When you activate your third eye, which is analogous to your pineal gland, but is not only emanating from your pineal gland, your third eye is an energetic structure that is part of your non-physical energy body. When you begin to activate that energy center and add the information that comes from that aperture to the information that comes from your two physical apertures of your physical eyes, then you can transcend duality. So the method for transcending duality involves using the flying rainbow lasagna to seamlessly integrate the interior of a space with the exterior of a space. And interior and exterior, the definition is created by a membrane or a boundary. So now let's talk about science and the Big Bang. The Big Bang. Science gets one gimme. Science asks us to believe in one very unbelievable fact, and then all the rest of science is based on rational skepticism, things that can be proven, things that can be observed. We are asked to believe in the spontaneous expansion of all that we see from one point of tiny, intense density. I'm calling this the Big Bang. So the idea is that everything began expanding from the 0th dimension spontaneously. And I call it the 0th dimension because it requires 0 coordinates to describe the position of a particle or a piece of consciousness at that point. It is one point. It is infinity. And everything lives there. Everything overlaps at infinity. So you and everything else live there. It does not require any amount of information to say that you are there because everything is there. So it's like saying you don't need to address your mail. Put it to infinity, everything is there. So we don't need to say that this is the x coordinate, this is the y coordinate, this is the z coordinate, this is the information that describes your position. 0 amount of information is necessary. It's the 0th dimension. We would also describe this as God. It's God consciousness. It is the presence of everything, the presence of all matter, the presence of all energy, the presence of all consciousness, and every single possibility and probability that could ever exist. And then the spontaneous expansion outward from that point, creating first a line and then many lines lined up next to each other to create a two-dimensional plane, and many planes stacked up on top of each other to create a third-dimensional cube, and many cubes lined up in a row to create another line. That's a crucial integument there, because you're familiar with the third dimension. You're a boxy creature living in a box, but you're not static. You move through time. And that means that you don't live in the same box. The box you woke up in this morning is not the same box that you're occupying right now. In this morning, you were in the box of 7 a.m. Now you're in the box of 12 p.m. Tonight you will be in the box of 6 p.m. Tomorrow morning you'll be in the box of 7 a.m. on the next day. These are boxes arranged like train cars in a line, and when you move through time, you move from train car to train car. So now we've gone a point, a line, a plane, plane stacked up into a cube, cubes arranged into a line, and now let's arrange those lines of cubes, like train cars, next to each other. Let's look at a line of trains, and now we have a time plane. And if I stack up a series of time planes, I get a time cube. And if I arrange a time cube and another time cube and another time cube in a line, I'm back to a line. And then I have a train that is made of time cubes. And this is how we build the dimensions. And with each successive dimension, we have to have more information in order to describe the position of a piece of consciousness or a particle of energy or matter. And with each successive dimension, we also gain an additional degree of freedom. These are crucial integuments. So please understand, just like the difference between a caterpillar and a butterfly is crucial, caterpillar is two-dimensional, can only move across the flat plane, but a butterfly, having transformed into its higher dimensional state, can go hither, thither, and yon. It has mastered the third dimension. Caterpillar has to crawl across the ground, up the stalk, and then to the edge of the leaf. The butterfly can fly directly from leaf to leaf or flower to flower, and that is necessary because the butterfly doesn't eat leaves. It drinks nothing but nectar. So when the being changes from being two-dimensional to three-dimensional, not only does it gain an additional degree of freedom, but its food source changes. You and I, right now, are in the larval state. It's not that attractive to mammals. Mammals are programmed with this biological distaste of worms and wormy things. However, you're a larva. That means that you are not yet a pupa. You're not yet a caterpillar that has consumed enough physical matter to cocoon itself into its transformative cave and then come out, emerge transformed as a butterfly. So the ancient Egyptians felt that the process of mummification was that crucial time of transformation after one is a larva, a physical human, but before one has achieved the adult winged state. And so I spoke about this last week, the difference between what the translation is. People call it the Egyptian Book of the Dead. No, it is a translation error. It is actually called the the Egyptian Book of Coming Forth into Day. And they're a series of incantations and actions to be performed over a corpse in order to give eternal life to its occupant. What a beautiful segue into magic and the realm of fairy. And just brief pause while I save my work. So I've been learning more about fairies and the realm of fairies, and I'm going to relate that now to magic from ancient Egypt, from the ancient Egyptian mystery school tradition that comes to us from ancient Atlantis. And I'm going to tie it all together with a bow. So I've been learning more about fairies from the realm of fairies themselves. I interpret this as the subatomic realm. Up until this point, I have focused mostly on the realm of grandeur, the macroscopic realm of the stars. And this is because that's my origin. I come as stellar consciousness into this mundane body. However, this is not the first time this has happened in the human realm. P.S. Please tune in next Wednesday for my Galactic History webinar. Please do the homework, which are 7 recorded homework lessons on YouTube, and then join us for a discussion. Join me and the rest of the participants for a discussion about the degradation of the human genome. Just taking a little drink here. The degradation of the human genome due to unwanted extraterrestrial influence at the end of the era of Atlantis. So, and why we are now in the process of bootstrapping our consciousness back up to those higher realms, okay? So why was ancient Egypt the repository for these secrets that came from Atlantis? And the answer is because in Atlantis, nobody died, everybody ascended. It was a beautiful, seamless feedback loop where people entered the physical realm, had experiences while they were still in connection to higher consciousness, like being in a real-time broadcaster, and then returning to that higher consciousness realm, as opposed to your current experience. Due to the hacked operating system of the conscious verbalized human mind, you're not a real-time broadcaster. You come to Earth into the physical realm, and your broadcasts go into an archive. You save them up. They are energetic memories or archives that are not broadcast to the sun and to higher consciousness, mostly until the moment of death. Sometimes people learn to meditate. This is when you learn to have an off button for your hacked operating system. Can you imagine creating an apparatus that does not have an off button? That's called the human mind. And actually, you can imagine one. You might even be holding one in your hands as you're listening to this broadcast because Steve Jobs didn't believe in the off button. He created iPads and other computer systems they really only have a pause button on them. And he said many times, I don't believe in off buttons, I only believe in pause. However, one's mind, one's hacked operating system, should have an off button. This goes deep. Why is there this presumption? It's like if you grow up in a household that is violent, and if you do something wrong, you'll get a beating. Why is there this presumption that it is appropriate to correct one's behavior with a beating? Why is there the presumption in this dysfunctional realm that in early infancy you will grow a human mind or be saddled with a human mind and then never be able to turn it off for your whole life. Most people, this is how they experience life. Their mind, from the time that it learns to verbalize, is constantly verbalizing. The constant verbalization cuts your consciousness off from accessing higher consciousness. It is only when you learn to cultivate inner silence through meditation and mindfulness that you are able to connect to higher consciousness and really achieve what is your true consciousness, as opposed to the distorted consciousness that comes from perturbations of the field. So most humans are having all of these wonderful experiences in the sensorium. And when I say wonderful, that's it doesn't necessarily mean how fun they are. Sometimes you can have wonderful experiences that are not very fun, like having a root canal or something like that. But it's just like the wonder is in the vividness of the experience and the uniqueness of having it. Anything, like I'm thinking of something enjoyable, like surfing when you're up on the wave. Woohoo, I'm riding the wave. And then you get dumped off of the surfboard and now waves are crashing over you. Not that much fun at that point, but the whole experience was wonderful. It was filled with sensation, and the magnitude and sophistication of it was quite amazing. And the whole point is, you are here as a broadcaster to have experiences with your physical senses and then broadcast them back to the larger entity of which you are a part. Remember how I said at the beginning we're part of a larger brain, galactic brain. And that galactic brain links up with lots of other galactic brains and makes things happen. Well, those galaxies base their actions and what they make happen on the feedback that they receive from their broadcasters. You're a investigative journalist in the field, broadcasting back to the home base. The home base is your nearest star, the sun. He's named Sol. It's why we live in the solar system. We're supposed to have experiences like right now. I'm sitting in my garden on a beautiful sunny day. Can feel the warmth of the sun. I can also hear birds singing in the background, and you can probably hear some on the recording. And there's a beautiful cool breeze, and I can smell the flowers that are nearby. All of this is fascinating information to the being that gave me the raw materials. That is the sun. That's right. My body comes from the sun. All of our bodies come from the sun. All of our nutrition comes from the sun, either directly, like when I sun gaze and ingest energy through my third eye directly into my energy system, or when I use chlorophyll as an intermediary. I eat a plant or I eat an animal that has eaten a plant, and then I get to ingest all of that beautiful light. The consciousness that is flowing through my neurology is sunlight that has been waylaid for a little while on its journey. And the sun echolocates, much like a bat. Bats send out vibrations in order to sense their environment, and they sense what objects are around them by the way that those vibrations bounce back to them. I am sending back broadcasts to the sun as much as possible in real time about what I am experiencing. And I do that by mastering my mind. We all must master our minds. This means achieve inner silence. Choose to create silence, because when you do that, when you stop verbalizing with your mind, then you can really focus on the other aspects of sensation, what your eyes and your ears and your skin and everything is perceiving. There is a basic cognitive dissonance from learning verbalized language, that when we are asked to access those levels of our consciousness, we have to shunt energy away from our senses and our direct experience. The mind and verbalized thought are an intermediary, a filter through which we process our experience. Language is a valuable tool because language is what we can use to pass information from one generation to a far distant generation. So if I needed to tell someone about something like a flying rainbow lasagna, I could write, a book about it or tell a story about it, and that story could be passed on from generation to generation. There is a value in having language. So we don't have to just completely throw away all aspects of human language, just like there's a value to having a conscious mind. However, the mind needs to be reined in. It needs to be honed. It needs to be made better. It needs to be cultivated, just like a body. A body needs to be cultivated through athleticism or yoga or positive exercise in order to achieve its true potential. So most people have a human mind that is not only a hacked operating system, and it's deformed, and it's spastic, and it's never been cultivated into a positive formation or a healthy form in a healthy state. No, it wasn't always this way. Yes, we had language in ancient Atlantis, so this would be considered before the fall of human consciousness, before the genetic degradation, before the installation of the hacked operating system, before the genetic invaders that came and changed humans and changed human culture. Before that time, humans were largely telepathic. That means that the flapping of my moving mouth parts was used very rarely, and only for the most significant pronouncements. Oral transmission, or saying words, actually vibrating the atmosphere with your voice, is, first of all, it is a very powerful thing to do. People in this time and place don't understand how powerful their voices are, because it's like using your supercomputer for a paperweight. Your voice has unexplored potentials in terms of creation that are almost unimaginable. There are some good science fiction books and movies that give people a little bit of an idea of the power of their voice. But mostly because the voice in this time and place is used for mundane purposes. For things like, can you please pass the ketchup, or please buy more toilet paper? Think about the difference when something is sung in an opera, how it achieves so much more profundity and emotional power behind it. Well, before the fall of human consciousness in ancient Atlantis, we mostly communicated telepathically, non-verbally, directly through image and senses. And if you're not familiar with what telepathy is, it is not necessarily the reading of physical thought, of verbalized linear thoughts, such as buy a potato or drive the car. Telepathy would be much more likely to be an image of a potato going into a shopping basket, or an image of hands on a steering wheel, or tires rotating to signify that the car is moving. True telepathy is like tasting a flavor. It is not like listening to an audio book. So if you tune into someone's mind, it's not like listening to the audio book where the narrator of their mind says, now I'm picking up my pencil, now I'm putting on my pajamas, now I'm brushing my teeth. Or even Aurora picked up her pencil, or Aurora put on her pajamas, or Aurora brushed her teeth. If you tuned into my mind telepathically, you would probably perceive me looking at my toothbrush, or thinking about picking it up, or thinking about putting toothpaste on my toothbrush. So, and this also, it must be understood, true telepathy happens on wings of love, or on a network of love. The consciousness that connects stars and galaxies is a love-based consciousness, like unconditional love. So again, when I define unconditional love, I'm not speaking about romantic attraction. Boyfriends and girlfriends, that type of love. It is not that type of love. It is universal love, or the type of love that is not expressed through sexuality. This is very difficult because in this time and place, almost everything has sexuality projected upon it, and people do the most inappropriate sexual things with non-consensual sexual partners. So it's hard to even think about having a healthy, unconditionally loving relationship. Perhaps the best conception would be, if you really love the planet, you cannot imagine having physical intercourse with a being the size of a planet. However, you can love the planet and express your love through appropriate actions by doing something like using only organic fertilizers instead of, chemical fertilizers and pesticides, or composting your garden scraps, or, your kitchen scraps, or choosing to drive less, or have solar panels on your home. These are ways of expressing your love that are not sexual, okay? This is, it sounds like a lesson for a child. However, right now, I'm speaking from being submerged within a socioeconomic matrix that is literally satanic. And that means that the first chakra, the red chakra at the base of the spine, where a lot of the creative capacity comes into the body from Earth, the planet, that chakra has been hijacked and distorted. And sexuality and the creative process of one's imagination has been distorted by these otherworldly malevolent service to self beings who don't believe in living in an abundant world, who would way rather have their own profits and their own pile of gold and have everyone else live in misery. They are not Ubuntu. They are not open source beings. And those beings are the beings that created the hacked operating system that made sure that it has been imposed upon everybody's mind and have made it very difficult for you to achieve inner silence. Guess what? All of this has been done behind the scenes, behind the curtains of the network of stellar consciousness, which is, the galaxies, the actual stars themselves. And these are intelligent beings at such a high level that it's hard for you or I to even imagine. But imagine if you, as the owner of your body, owner-operator of your own physical body, knew every cell personally, knew what was going on inside of every cell, knew, this cell has a problem with its ATP, we better get going on that, or this cell over here has a difficulty in its nucleus, or this cell over here needs to have a better hormone come along and activate its cell membrane. If you had that level of consciousness, you wouldn't even have the level of consciousness of a star, because you'd have to also know what's going on a molecular level and on an atomic level and on the level of every single possibility or timeline. The star that has emanated this planet, Sol, not only knows about you as an individual, knows about you and cares about your life, cares about your car insurance, cares about whether you have enough food to eat and whether it is high enough quality. Sol also cares and knows about your physical body, the functioning of your organs, knows and cares about the molecules that are inside of your body, knows and cares about the atomic structure of those molecules, and knows and cares about all of the possible versions of you on other timelines. The conscious, verbalized mind that is always chattering inside is the veil that disconnects you from real-time broadcasts to Sol. Because if Sol knew about your problems, they would be solved almost instantaneously. It is only that these difficulties are happening behind a veil or behind the scenes. Literally, it is mental abuse. It is rape and abuse that there are otherworldly beings, lower vibrational service to self entities, who wish to reach inside of your mind and stimulate it in order for you to release negative emotions, and also in order to prevent you from connecting to your own higher consciousness. Because once you connect to your own higher consciousness, pardon my French, but mostly what you say is, fuck this shit, I'm not putting up with the abuse anymore. So of course, the abusers wish to keep you in a disempowered state and prevent you from recognizing the power of your own consciousness. So there are beautiful teachers. Mostly these are schools of the Far East, of Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism, that teach people how to cultivate their minds into silence so that you can begin becoming a real-time broadcaster to the sun, and so that the sun, our beautiful star, can be aware of what is happening in your life and in your context. So let's say that your whole entire life, you've been chatting away with your verbalized mind. The sun has no idea about what's going on and what your difficulties are like. And then let's say you're in a near car accident. And for the first time ever, your mind goes blank and you are just existing. And all of a sudden, it's like the sun can tell what is going on and says, I need to fix what's happening on your timeline immediately because you're about to die. And this is why and how we can understand some of the miraculous shifts that people experience in moments of crisis. We are talking about how the mind works and the capacity for you to manifest using your imagination. Humans have been told not only that you are worthless, but also that your mind is not powerful and that your capacity to manifest is worthless. And all of that is false. You are the owner-operator of an amazing, magical contraption called a physical body. The beings that have created this mental structure, this hacked operating system, don't have physical bodies. They covet your body. Of course, they don't want any of the discomforts. They don't want any of the farting and toothaches and having to go to the toilet issues. They do want to have all of the joy and the bliss that you can have, like during eating good food or sitting peacefully in a garden or painting a painting or listening to a symphony. Those are beautiful experiences to have, and it's worth it to have the toothaches and the farting in order to have the positive things. However, the beings that covet the human body, they also condescend. They look down upon those owner-operators of human bodies, and they say, you're nothing. Look how weak and vulnerable you are. We'll get into this in the Galactic History webinar about the need for technology in order to supplement the physical body and why that's necessary. But basically, these condescending beings are disempowering you. And when you wake up to your true value, you recognize, wait a minute, you have a physical body, and you can be in control of the physical mind. You can then have a conversation with the sun and extend that conversation to the galaxy and extend that conversation even further to the entire cosmos. And you can be a powerful participant in the cosmic drama. Of course, there are a lot of beings that would like to prevent that from happening because then you would no longer be food for them. They raised you as food to emit negativity, anger and fear and hatred and sorrow, and they do not want you to become empowered. So this is the challenge. So this is why the teachings of ancient Atlantis were held in secret by places like the ancient mystery school traditions of Egypt and, of course, Tibetan Buddhism. And the teachings of the Egyptian Book of Coming Forth into Day have everything to do with how a caterpillar turns into a butterfly. The idea of a ritual incantation and connecting this now to the fairy realm. Because your voices are powerful. And there was a time when our voices were used to create reality. And there are stories that come to us, like of the Native Americans of very ancient times in a starvation situation where they planted seeds and they sang over the seeds and the corn grew up instantaneously because of the power of the voices and the pureness of their heart. It's just a little story. There are many stories about humans using their voices as magic. Let's go to Merlin. In the golden days of yore, the idea that a magician named Merlin sang the stones of Stonehenge into their present position, that it was the power of his voice and other non-physical aspects of his consciousness that could move these multi-ton rocks. It's also been told that he asked the stones to move and that they followed his commands. Okay? So the voice can be very powerful when it is not utilized in a constant mundane fashion as it is in this time and place. Pass the ketchup, please. In ancient Atlantis and other times, the voice was used as a ritual tool of powerful aspect of consciousness, and it can be again. The fairy realm is the subatomic realm, and this is the realm of possibilities and probabilities. When we speak of the fairy realm, we are speaking of the electron shell. At the level of the atom, we cannot state with any certainty the position of an electron. We can only state its probability within a position, within an area, and it's like saying it's the neighborhood. We know where the electron might be, but not exactly where it is. We can just say the neighborhood that it lives in. And that's because it is a truer or more accurate description to say that the electron lives in every possibility. The electron occupies every single position of that shell. In dealing with the fairy realm, according to mythology, fairies were capricious. They made a decision one way and then changed their mind and went the other way. Fairies also would bring humans into their realm, and humans would experience a radical distortion of time. Like what might feel like just an evening of being in the fairy circle, then they would return to find that 100 or 300 years had passed. So a distortion of time into the time realms. Before our present day mental program began running, the program of objective materialism and rational skepticism, there was a different program running that was a program of magic. And magic was, let's say, the confluence, the coming together of the human imagination system and the subatomic realm of imagination and possibility and probability. If I say that right now, according to objective materialism and science and rational skepticism, if I say there is a relatively low probability of a bowl simply containing blue flame, just having spontaneous blue flame just jump out of a bowl, low probability. However, let's say that I assemble certain key aspects of the physical realm. We'd call them chemicals, but these chemicals can be in the what is required, the recipe for a ritual. So let's say it's a little bit of a bat wing and a little bit of an eye of newt and a little bit of a particular herb and special dust from a special mountain mixed together, and if proper words are said, it increases the probability that blue flame will arise from that bowl. Or any magical occurrence. What we would say magical, we would say something that cannot be explained or described according to the laws of physics and according to rational skepticism and science and objective materialism. So there was a time when humans cultivated and harnessed their imagination, their capacity to manifest with their mind. They combined that with the subatomic realm of possibilities and probabilities and elements of Earth herself. So this is like saying if cells of my own body took a little hormone out of my bloodstream and a little bit of liquid out of my lymph and then a little bit of calcium out of my bones, mixed them together, said magical words, and poof, something happened that wouldn't have happened otherwise. This is what magic was. And what fairies did was they gave information to humans about how humans could increase the probability or the likelihood of something happening that would have been very unlikely otherwise. So let's use healing as an example. Let's say a person cut their leg very badly. The likelihood of it healing without infection was low. If a proper poultice was made of healing herbs and the right words of healing voice was said over the wound, it increased the probability that the wound would heal. Or anything that we need to have happen. So here we can use science to say, there was a beneficial essential oil or something like that in the plant that had a healing quality to it. And you know something? That's truthful. It's also truthful to say that a plant is a neurotransmitter that grows out of the brain of the woman named Gaia. We're living on the surface of a woman named Gaia. And all of the plants that grow here are neurotransmitters. They contain tiny brain chemicals. And by taking little aspects of chemicals that come out of her mind, and either eating them or placing them on wounds or creating the proper, form of ingestion of those tiny pieces of information from our planet, miracles can happen. This is how healing happens. So the beautiful interaction that happened a long time ago was the beings that occupy the realm of the subatomic realm. They had a partnership with humans where they said, we'll tell you what little molecules you need to put together and what magical vibrations you need to make with your voice in order to change probability. The probability that a bowl could contain a blue flame, or that a person could levitate, or that a magical portal could be created and a being from another place could travel through to your place. Those occurrences used to happen on a regular basis. And the reason, or the explanation as to how they occurred, was information like a recipe and a set of actions from the realm of fairies taught humans how to do these things. Of course, humans, it became distorted. So when the human genome was distorted, the human value system and perception and ability to communicate was distorted, and also due to the influx of these malevolent beings into the human genome. When I say the value system was distorted, I mean that now it was considered to be appropriate to seek to be powerful over another organism or to dominate another being. It went from being a realm of partnership and collaboration into a realm that is pretty much defined as barbaric. Only the strong shall survive, and to the victor go the spoils. And when we create a society with those values, it really drops out a lot of the subtleties. In a collaborative society, more subtleties can arise because you are not simply spending all of your time and energy protecting and defending yourself from being brutally raped or murdered or having all of your resources stolen. So there are higher levels of collaboration that can occur. When this genetic influx happened and the human degradation of mind happened, and also humans had to start eating plants and animals in order to survive, as opposed to subsisting entirely upon mental food or pure sunlight, everything changed. And then humans began to use magic and this capacity to control events for powers in order to be powerful over others and to control other people's behavior. And this distorts reality because this goes against free will. Each one of us should be able to have sovereignty. Each one of us should be able to choose the thoughts in our own minds. We should not have anyone forcing themselves into our minds, programming our minds against our will, or controlling our behaviors because they are controlling our minds or our perceptions. All of those things have been going on within the earthly realm for about the past 10 or 12,000 years. I'm here to inform you that this is not a schoolhouse of the universe. This is a distorted funhouse where what you send out does not come back to you in an undistorted, unfettered way. What you send out might never come back to you. It might circulate around endlessly, or what you send out might come back to you in such a distorted form as to be unrecognizable. And this means that you never learn. This realm has been purposefully created as a distorted realm to make it difficult for you to learn, to keep you trapped here. And the reason why I'm here, the reason why I have a radio show, why I create artwork, and why I give webinars is to share the open source code for your DNA so that you don't have to be stuck here anymore. Or you can be here, but we can redefine what being here is. You no longer have to be trapped or enslaved or not in control of your consciousness and a person who has to merely eat to survive while something else feeds off of you. That is not what you were created for. You were created by an exalted being to be an exalted being. And I look around and I see a lot of people living a diminished existence, but that doesn't mean that that is the totality of their potential. There's a lot of obese out of shape people, that's not their human potential. Almost every single one of those people, of course, apart from disease or major injury, but if you are healthy and have the capacity to walk or run or ride a bicycle, every single one of those severely overweight people could have had a different life, could have had different thoughts that led to different behaviors, that led to the manifestation of a different body. So, I only have a few more moments on this recording. The flying rainbow lasagna is allowing humans to rearrange their genes into their, I would say, proper format. You don't just have to retread. You don't just have to go back to what you once were. You can move forward into something new. That is the lesson. That is what I have to share. That's the information that I have to share. My body is not an ordinary human body. My body doesn't behave like an ordinary human body. Although I look humanoid. If you look at pictures of me, I have 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth and arms and legs. I mean, I'm very lucky. I look just like a human. However, my body functions differently. My matter is made of matter that responds instantaneously to what my mind and my consciousness is thinking. So there is no time lag. There is no, I think this and then this happens, or I think this and then my body becomes this, and this is what we are all going to become. Instant manifestors of our bodies, and then it spreads outward to instant manifestors of our experiences and the context within which we reside. And this is totally appropriate because we are miniature suns, miniature stars, little tiny emanators that are emanations of the great emanator, that is an emanation of an even larger emanator. So we are here to be creators, to use our minds and our bodies and our creative capacity to create. That's the lesson, that's the takeaway from this recording, everyone. You are the owner-operator of an amazing physical organic body with a physical organic computer, and you can create. Yes, you can not only create life, like a baby that can come out of the body, but you can create a symphony. You can create a haiku. You can create an electrical invention that's never been created before, or a painting, or a new recipe. Please utilize your creative capacity to make for yourself a beautiful body, beautiful life experience, beautiful planetary experience, and a beautiful, larger context. Thank you so much for joining me for the birth of a new dimension.